Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this edition of the Management OS podcast brought to you by CEO Mastermind.ai. Today, I have an incredible guest. We were just talking before recording. We could probably be here for days spilling pearls of wisdom, but we're going to go through a quick podcast. We're not going to boil the ocean, but we're definitely going to cover a lot of area. So today, I have with me Brian Parana. He is the founder of Premium Health Consulting. He specializes in helping professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders build a body that matches their business. Now, what he does, he blends health optimization with business performance. And those of you who have been following this podcast know very well, I talk about my three pillars, which are sort of strategy, structure, and operation, and then people. And under the people pillar, we're always talking about health and longevity. And so really, if you're interested in optimizing your health, increasing your energy, your impact on all that, then this is the masterclass you want to sit down for and one that you'll want to grab pen and paper for. And then obviously in the show notes, I'll tell you where you can hunt Brian down for some help. Because at the end of the day, as I say, we have one life to live. And so we got to make sure that we're healthy, we're strong, and Brian, I'm sure you'll talk about it, but how many business leaders and executives, whether you're a founder or in $10 million company, $100 million company, or $30 billion company executive, it's common that everyone, sacrifices themselves for this business, but then they miss their family dinners, they get sick, and the whole nine yards. So anyhow, welcome to this podcast. A little bit of your story and your journey, and we'll dig into some of the topics as we go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what brings me here today is just this constant engagement with clients over the last 20 some years. I've been doing this about 23 years, but the sole person that I helped were business owners, entrepreneurs, middle management, or up. This was just people that could afford, personal training back in the day. And those are the people that I saw day in, day out when I was way back early on in my career. And I learned a lot about what the day-to-day life looks like, the busyness, the schedule, the decision fatigue, the meetings on meetings on meetings, often skipping lunches to end up just going home and phasing out and just eat too much. And oftentimes my clients, and this just extends to any professional, they want a body, they want the energy, they want the productivity, the fitness, in a sense, to be able to help carry them in areas that they are perform well in. So business, in a sense, or even their family. And that was the undertone of what kept showing up in my day-to-day life and what I had worked toward building and getting through to those clients. So who's Brian? I am 42 years young. I married my high school sweetheart. We're 19 years in. We have 4 kids, 2 in high school, 2 in middle school, 3 boys and a girl. It's silly busy. So I understand the day-to-day of operating a business. I've been self-employed myself for 15 plus years, and juggling the family. My kids are at home, and carving out time just to spend with them is a challenge, but also trying to run the business stuff is a challenge. But keep taking care of myself, I know it's got to be a priority regardless. So when I allocate the time for each of these areas, I can show up fully present. And a lot of people, they show up in one area and they're just worthless in another, in a sense. So that's me personally. A little professionally, I've been doing this since 2002. I graduated with an exercise nutrition degree. I taught group exercise. I was a personal trainer. I've owned 2 gyms, 2 CrossFit gyms for about 5 years. I actually took a lady to the CrossFit Games and she won. We went 3 years in a row. We got first, second, and eighth. Very cool experience. And then I moved into online coaching and realized I could talk and help people way better than telling them how to do push-ups and squats. That's what I moved to. And in that time frame, have had thousands of people that I've helped all over the US, but even the world. One other pinnacle, I guess, of put another feather in the cap would be a 2-time Olympian, Sofia Renioso. We went to Tokyo and Paris together. Very
Oh,
cool
wow.
experience to help her manage her nutrition while abroad. There you go. Me in a nutshell.
Nice. Yeah, in a nutshell, that's awesome. I actually quickly wanted to I want to talk a little bit about blind spots around energy and optimization, but I'd written down this concept of decision fatigue.
Yeah.
I can talk about my blind spot and I've come to realize, but a friend of mine, Connor Carrick, he's a former NHL hockey player, played in Toronto, played for Seattle, was in the Edmonton, and now he's over in Europe. He said something with me on a podcast where he said, you can't outmind bad biology. Not
Right.
most executives, high achievers, A plus, go getters, the whole nine yards. We think we can do it all and we can ignore our body, but you can't
Right.
ignore biology. Like at the end of the day, our at the molecular level, we're 200,000 years old or 10,000 years old, whatever. It's really old,
Yes.
right? So we live in a world we're really not designed to be in. So my blind
Right.
spot was like, well, I can just do it, right? I can climb a mountain and this whole hustle culture says, put your mind to it, you can do it all. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
you forget your kid. Like you're right, you have to allocate, you have to invest in yourself. You can show up at our parts of your life. In your experience, what have been, do you find like what are the blind spots that you're finding around others, executives around energy and health optimization, their mindset? Like, how do we get behind like why does this even happen in the first place?
There's, as you said, there's such a demand on the day-to-day life that they are so focused in that one area, tunnel vision in a sense. They have their head in the
Mm,
sand when it comes to their health or exercise, thinking I'll get around that to that later. Well, one year, just think of this, David. If you gained just a quarter pound a week, that's 1 pound a month. That's roughly 25 pounds in a year. 2 years, you're, 12 pounds in a year and a
yep.
then 25 in 2 years, you're overweight for sure, working your way toward obese. And that's just in 2 years of a quarter pound a week of weight gain. And that's just not paying attention and
Hmm.
but not even that. You're going to have ups and downs in your weight, but you're not focused on bringing it back down, or you don't have skills in this particular area around how to take better care of yourself. And I think that's a huge blind spot, that there's so much skill acquisition that goes into leaders, entrepreneurs, and all, but they're
Hmm.
not focused on their health because they haven't had to, or there's just such a demand on their time and life to get the business to do what it needs to do.
That's a really good point. I never really thought of it that way around the skills. I think you're exactly right. I mean, we go chase skills in everything else in part of our life, and for whatever reason, probably hustle culture, probably
Hmm.
sort of, try to get to the top of the mountain at all costs. There's a lot of rhetoric around that, and I think that's why you and I align. Is like
Yeah.
you can get to the top of the mountain in one piece with your family in one piece beside you, rather than having just one thing, because the rate of mental health challenges when among super wealthy people is incredibly high. And
Yeah.
it's because they've sacrificed everything that was meant to be life along the way. So it's
Right.
really tough. Do you talk a lot about,
Real quick, I think
okay.
you end up getting focused on the destination and forget the journey. And that's what life is. It's a journey that you want to experience in a multifaceted way, not just having a week here or there for vacation or something, or some downtime, or going to the analogy you're using, climbing the mountain. If you were to actually physically climb a mountain, there is a recovery, a recuperation time you would put
Mm,
into your schedule before you try to climb another mountain. Like that's just physical human nature. And you're right, life is fast forward pace. It's probably it's like 3 or 4 times pace, especially with AI coming in now. It's 10 times the
mhm.
pace that it was just even a year ago at its inception. And we aren't planning those recovery times in a sense.
You're right. That's funny. I'm gonna ask you about that next. You kind of walked right into it around
Yeah.
recovery. Do you find like so myself, I have this is an ultra human ring. So whether it's an ultra human or an aura or whatnot, I have found myself really trying to focus on getting proper sleep and watching my pattern, not to
Yeah.
freak out if it goes up or down, because I think that's a problem. Some people have that I've been told, then I know the number, then I freak out, then I'm stressed, then I can't recover.
Ah,
And it's like,
it's
well,
like the scale. I stepped on the scale and I have a bad day.
yeah, and it's like, no, no, it's just, I look for patterns in my HRV. Like,
Yes.
what are things that you look for, or guide your, your clients around sort of nervous regulation, and the key thing is recovery, because I think that for sure is one of the most ignored things for sure. It's like, oh, sleep when I'm dead. My brother says, right?
Yeah,
The
I'll sleep when
Jagger,
I'm
oh,
dead.
sleep when I'm dead. It's like, oh, no,
Yep.
no, you'll get there a little faster if you don't.
Yeah, a lot faster
Um,
than you want.
yeah, can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. KPIs for ROIs, specifically in your health. So the key performance indicators, so you know them. I know them. You hear them all the time. But the fact is that the people I work with know that they should be doing it, but they're not doing it. Simple things, getting enough water. I think women should get at least 80 ounces of water, men over 100. That keeps you properly hydrated. That's whether you're drinking coffee, tea without tons of calories added to them, or just plain water or seltzered, whatever. We need a certain amount of movement every day. That'd be number two is 10K steps.
Yeah.
I think that just defines an active, healthy lifestyle, whether you work out or not. If we wanted to add workout 2 to 3 times in a week of something 30 to 60 minutes, just doing full body, it doesn't have to be anything hard or challenging. It just has to get done. I always like to put this in
Hmm.
perspective. If you work out 3 times a week, the rest of your life, you'll be more consistent than the majority of humanity ever was in doing structured physical exercise and activity. So we have that. We need sleep. Again, the 6 to 8 hours, at the very least six. And you will absolutely, science-backed studies say that if you're under 6 hours consistently, you're really going to have a hard time managing your weight. It's just a fact, a scientific studied fact that because you're up longer, you're running into cortisol, you are exposed to the desires of wanting more food, and that can be a big challenge. And the last one we'll throw out there because we did sleep, hydration, and movement, and
Working.
then nutrition. I spend probably about 80% of my time working with clients in the nutrition area. Why? You can't outwork a bad diet in a sense. And if you have
Hmm.
meetings, or catered lunches, or client dinners, or in the air, fine dining up in the
Yeah.
flying tube, you're not paying attention to your nutrition, or it's incredibly a lot more challenging to focus on to even the right calories. As soon as you go out to eat, you're 1,000, 1,500 calories in pretty quick. And then if you're in the
Yeah.
right environment, there's plenty of peer pressure and all to get you to eat a little bit more or have another round if you know what I mean. And we
Hmm.
need to have a reason. We need to eat the right amount of food to get the right amount of energy for your body needs in that day.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I'll just recap. There's,
Yep.
water and hydration, 80 to 100 ounces or a couple
Yep.
liters a day, depending what part of the world you're listening to.
Right.
Getting in your workout 3 times a week, which makes sense, 30 to 60 minutes.
Yep.
Talked about sleep, and the science of less than 6 hours is a bad idea.
Right.
Here's a fact, and you probably know this, but I'll share this for the audience before I get into nutrition. What I didn't know is that we have our lymphatic system, which fights off immunes and infections
Yeah.
and all that. It comes through our nose, and it's, our immune system is 70% from our gut lining, but that whole lymphatic system doesn't doesn't work on our brain. Like, it's actually, the brain is excluded, and the brain, quote unquote, washes itself, goes through a process. I forgot the medical term for it, but every night it actually washes itself, programs memory, all those sorts of
Right.
things, and keeps you healthy. And I think that, for me, I think that's one of the things that people don't realize, is that when you're sleeping, there's a lot of things going on.
Oh,
And it's easy as, oh, I'm sleeping, nothing's happening. It's
right.
like, well, actually, almost everything is happening when
Right.
you're sleeping, right? So,
One more input on lymphatic system. It's a drainage system that helps move out just substances that you don't really want in your body. And if you're not moving at all and you're just sitting all day, there's no processing of the body. Just me moving my arm right now in my armpit area is a big lymphatic area, and I'm moving
mhm.
fluid and drainage through that and keeping it working properly.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge we have, particularly sort of in the North American and probably some sort of European countries, is that we're not moving enough, so we're
Right.
not doing what you just said. We're not drinking enough, so we don't even
Right.
give our body the ability to remotely process because the food you probably had that instance when you get a beautiful orange and it just tastes so amazing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's like, well, that's actually what it's supposed to taste. Most of them don't taste like that because their soil, and
Right.
Dr. Mark
Food
Hyman talked
quality.
a lot about it. The food quality is not what it was,
Right.
30, 40 years ago. People say, oh, you don't need supplement. True, you don't 50 years ago, but everything around us has changed, but our body hasn't. So if you give it what it needs, we'll just live longer, plain and
Right.
simple, right?
Right.
So um and then around nutrition, the one that I heard a couple of years ago that I'm trying, so I use my fitness pal. I'm just a
Yeah.
million app to track. So as long as people do track. And I don't know, I've heard a couple of different variations. I don't know if you have a number on it, but for every year I'll speak for males because I'm a guy, so at least I know for men. I think for every year past 25, your metabolism slows down 1%.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, I'm just a few years older than you. So if I start slowing down, I'm 47, so at time of recording, 25%, my metabolism is 25% slower than what it was when I was 25, right? Or
Yeah.
22% rather, 47 or 25. And but if I'm eating the same, that's the other thing I think I want to talk with people about nutrition is that you have to adjust for the physiological, the biology changes that happen, and then to your point,
Yes.
build the system around it, right?
Yes. Yeah, I totally would agree with that. And even if whether that's say science backed or not, or we could put our finger on it being 1% every year, we know. Just look at good old Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not quite the Austrian oak that he once was, right? We know we're
True.
losing muscle. We know that we're losing capacity. We know we're losing metabolism every single year, especially after 40. And you
Mhm.
need to move your body to burn calories, and you need to focus on some form of muscle building activities, strength training of sorts, to help promote maintaining the muscle mass that you have on your body. Could you build some more muscle after you're 45 or 50? Possibly, yeah. But also at that point, you might just be hanging on to whatever you have on your body as well. And then just having that consistency as part of a long term investment on your health is so important. And again, it gets overlooked because the schedule, it's not getting planned out. And a lot of things that we're talking about is really just basic. We don't need the cold plunges per se, the red lights. We don't need the saunas and all this stuff. Sure, we can have some of those that could be beneficial on some level, but if you're not doing the basics right, then why does it matter if you're doing a cold plunge every morning for 10 minutes? You're still going to overeat 500 plus calories at the end of the day. You're not burning that
Mhm.
many calories off because you've decreased your core body temperature by a few degrees for a short amount of time. It's just that's just not how it works.
I think that the big what you just said there too is part of why this podcast excites me to talk about this topic is because people don't actually schedule it. And
No.
I don't remember, I don't know who said it, doesn't matter, I guess, but the concept is show me your calendar and
Yep.
I'll know what's important to you. Right.
Exactly.
So
What gets scheduled gets done.
the schedule gets done. And so I mean, I'm guilty of not having it
Me
all done,
too.
but I'm trying to continue to get better into the habit because even though if you think about our traditional school system, we're not taught to be for brevity. We're not taught a lot of things. Not to say that they don't matter. It's just different. And so I think when you get into this arena of business and life and kids and mortgage and families and
Yeah.
like there's all kinds of
Car
things
payments.
flying at car payments, like the whole
Yeah.
thing. It
I don't
is
know about you,
important to stay.
David. The every year after 40, I feel like I get more mounting responsibility. It just keeps adding up. I'm like, oh my
It
goodness.
just keeps adding up. Yeah, 100%. I got two teenage girls, so it's sort of like, hang on a second. I thought it was supposed to get easier to get older,
Yeah.
but
Right.
not too much, as having a couple teenagers.
Yep.
Um, so in your, like, can you talk about your, kind of operating system that you like to overview or how you approach things with your clients? Can you give us an overview of what's it like working with Brian
Okay, great. Great.
walk us through a little bit here?
Yeah, definitely. First up, I need to approach people with logic around what nutrition is, what fitness is, and how to fit it into their actual day-to-day life. When you go through a first session with me, you just, wow, okay, this is simple. This is easier than I thought it was going to be. I can do these things and put them into my day. That's what we need as a step-by-step process that James Clear, Habits 1% better is what we need to work on to build the momentum and the drive and the desire and the motivation and willpower. And all those things come after you start
Yeah.
to set up systems and habits and routines. And again, working with me, I'm looking for those little, what I call shoelace moments. I have two teenagers and four kids still. They're all, I guess, teenagers at this point. Because the 10-year-old girl, she acts 13 just by by the force of having older brothers, wanting to
Sure.
keep up. And they'll be walking around and they say, "Hey," I'll say as the parent, "Hey, your shoe's untied. You probably should stop and tie it." And sometimes they do, and other times they just shrug. And then you go on,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Yeah.
sometimes that works just fine. They can walk and no problem. Other times they stumble, they trip, they catch it. Other times they might face plant. Right? They fall and hurt themselves and face plant. Now, in the health, nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, a face plant could cost you just a couple days or a couple months. How many times did
Mhm.
you have a Last Supper type event? Oh, this weekend just they got away from you. Next thing you know, you don't pay attention at all for months, and then you finally come up for air, and you're a couple pounds heavier and that much farther behind you making progress. And my goal is to not only teach the clients how to tie their shoe, but double knot the shoe
Mm.
because we don't want it to come untied. And through actual conversations, we start to see where these shoelace moments show up in their day. For high performers, they got meetings and all this. And hey, are you having you or your assistant blocking off chunks of time in your day that you need to rest and recover? In a sense, say you have 4 meetings in a row and they're pretty heavy, hard hitting. That's climbing a mountain. You need
Mhm.
recovery time after that to be able to function and process and recoup and recover to get back into another shift because humans are cyclical in their nature, right? They sleep for a certain amount of time a day to complete rest and recover, and then they have periods of high energy output. But also, if you go rewind 1,000 years, there's plenty of times where we're just laying around. I think some cultures have it right with the siesta in the middle of the day.
With
I
the
wouldn't mind having
siesta.
a siesta and having two smaller work chunks and not have to keep up with capitalism or something. That'd be nice. Consumerism, right? You got to keep up with
True.
consumerism. So those are some of the ways that I help people start to see be through actual conversation, through slowing down, through looking at their schedule, the way they think about things, the way they prioritize things, what their experience was in the past, what are the challenges that keep showing up in their current life, what are challenges from the past, what are perceived challenges in the future. Hey, David, what does this next week look like on the calendar? Let's plan for some of the challenges that might be up there so you're aware of them and you can make a different choice. Because at the end of the day, this is all a power of choice. And I want to make sure my clients are choosing their own health first and foremost over other things as much as possible. Certainly their family, there's career stuff, all this that shows up, but we can't just go days without choosing something for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, and I think what you just said there around the scheduling and sort of the push for, you and I live in Canada, you're in the US, and sort of and even in Europe and UK and Australia and everywhere around the world, like there's just constant, especially with AI, like there's just constant
Yeah.
push for more, constant push
Oh
for
yeah.
productivity, drive the GDP, and to an extent that's important. But the one thing, you hear too fast. We're still humans. Not gonna
Yes.
change, right? People forget about that. And
Yep.
then two, when we look at the business environment, the rate of failure with businesses that have systems versus those that don't, the typical business failure is 90-95%.
Right.
When you look at franchise or licensed brokerage type system, the failure rate is 5-10%.
Right.
And
Significantly
so when
different.
they built in significant 10x difference practically,
Mm-hmm.
and when you look at the difference between them, there isn't like one system that just focuses on one thing. It's
Right.
multifaceted, and shockingly so is
Right.
business, right? There's sales, marketing, ops, and so is your life. And I think that the sort of message why I wanted to have you with you. It's about you need a system. And I actually never heard your term shoelace. Well, I've heard it before because I've
It's
heard
something
you,
I
but
made
like
up. That's why I
something you
talk in
made, something you,
analogies and metaphors because
yeah.
I need someone to think, and that catches you, right? You understand what that is in real life, and
Mhm,
then you say, "Oh, through our relationship, through our communication, I start to pick up on these patterns of behaviors because ultimately, as you said, and I know we all know, is we're all human. We have the
yeah.
same operating. David, you're a unique person, right? Your life and your the way you grew up, your family, all these things, right? But your human nature about you is very, there's a lot of patterns that show up amongst a lot of other people. So you're playing out these patterns of behaviors, and I come in and
Mhm.
I pattern interrupt to then get you to make a different choice. Say, hey, your shoelace is untied. And you say, oh, I didn't never knew it was there. No wonder I fell on my face every single time this a holiday came or a birthday in the office came or someone ordered lunch in or I got an impromptu invite to go to some sort of an entertainment thing with food and I always come back with food regret the next day, right? And I call that out,
Mhm.
and you say, "Oh, when this happens, I do this behavior. We need to change the behavior. We need to change the thought process of that situation first and foremost."
I'd like what you said about pan interrupt because I think the key message there for the audience to hear is like you sort of need, I guess, maybe I'm going to use the word personal board, but you almost need a personal board, right? In the
Yep.
sense of, even if you look at all professional athletes, right, they have a few
Yeah.
people,
Yep.
and you can
Coach
simulate
and
this on a
yep.
less expensive level. So I'm not saying we need to do LeBron James and spend 4 million
Right.
a
No, you
year.
don't
Like
need to spend $1 million a
we
year or
we don't need
something.
to do this. Like this is all attainable
Yes.
for majority of people. And it's like find a system, find the people that you
Right.
can listen to. If you have zero money, for example, you can at least start through podcasts, through things like this, while we're
Yep.
having this conversation to help people and say,
Yep.
here's the thing to think about. And then you say, hey, when it's important enough, you scrap up a few bucks and you'll say, yeah, I need Brian's help. I need someone to help me with this. Because at the end of the day, I think Russell Brunson said this, or he stole it from someone, doesn't matter.
Yep.
But even a successful business can't fix a broken home, or a
Nope.
successful business can't really fix a broken person. And
Nope.
so we have 1,000 problems until we're sick, and then we only have one problem,
Then you have one problem.
and and you only have one problem, and it's like, and here's the other thing too, which I appreciate what you're focused on is 95% of disease states or sort of all cause mortality effects come from sort of lifestyle or environmental.
At this
For
point in time, yeah, very much so.
look at we all know how this chapter ends, right? Like we
Yep.
know how we start and how we finish, but we live life between B and D, between birth and death, and the C is the choice, and we have a choice to make it quality, make it long, and
Yep.
that's where I look at it because I've brushed with death more than once on my own, and I have seen family around me, and it's like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
crazy, and we'll try to
And
take.
we're at the age where that's starting to happen a little bit more, right? All of a sudden, you're, hey, wait a minute, this person's dead or that person. Whoa, it's getting, even in our 40s, you got to think if average male expectancy is 76, yeah, we're running out of time faster than we want to admit.
And yeah, and I've thought about this a few years ago, and I call it when I talk to people, and you could probably have the same concept, but I call it the half-life, right?
Yeah.
So in chemistry, there's this concept of a half-life, right?
Hmm.
So at some point you have the half-life, and then it doubles, and in chemistry it's a degradation process. But in with us, people think, oh yeah, you're at the halfway point when you're 50. It's like not really. You're more on the back nine than the front nine, and I believe if we can get the 20 something year old entrepreneurs and the 20, 30-year-old, executives, think about if you were at this point in time, at your half-life point, so say you're 24 and you start thinking, shit, I've got till 48. I think you're
Yeah.
going to start thinking about things differently. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the things I want to get out is think about the half-life, let's say whatever point you may be, you know, unless if you're past 50 for sure, yeah, you're past the actual half-life. But if you're before that, you have an opportunity to extend it and to really make change. The person that has, I've had numerous people that have had, they say by the time you have a heart attack, it happened 10 years ago. Right, or same thing with like sort of cancer cells, depending on the type, God forbid.
Yeah.
But really, like you got to start making those choices. The sooner, the better. Sure, enjoy yourself, and like you said, you don't want to have booby grip, but if you have an optimized body, you can absorb 1 or 2 off nights, or a guy's or a gal's weekend, because your body can deal with that sort of
Right.
deviation and extra toxins and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
It's not a big deal. We're designed for it. If you do it every weekend,
Yeah.
you say, "Oh,
Moderation and balance is a part of the game. You're a human, you're gonna have that. But if it's the way you live.
that's the way we live," and I think that's the piece where we want to, that's where we want to sort of change the narrative, because I think you touched on it a bit earlier, but it's I think one of my hypotheses around some of the mindset challenges, or maybe people shut off, is this whole biohacking. Oh my God, I got
Yeah.
to do this, I got to do that, I can't do, and
Yeah.
it just gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
And we just sort of put a muffled sound on top of our ears and just go about it. But
Right.
um, what have you seen? Have you seen people try to, because I don't know if biohack.
Yeah, we have a lot of biohacking nowadays, especially with technology coming into play. We've got the red lights, got the cold plunges, the saunas, we've got lights, we've got peptides and different other hormones that are getting. So we have
Sure.
steroids, we have a lot of different ways to nootropics, a lot of different ways to hack the body to produce more. Now, some of them could be valid, but I don't think you should be spending, $10,000 or something on an infrared light system that is supposed to help and with XYZ if you're still just overeating every day, or you're constantly drinking too much because you're stressed out, you don't have enough rest in your body, that's not going to fix it, right? And so you're trying to, I'm going to buy a $5,000 bike and go ride it, but I only rode it twice in the last month. That's not a good use of your time or money in that situation. We need to just, okay, can we just start walking in a sense, and not even changing your clothes to, can we just walk around and say 3 or 4 10-minute chunks in the day to start moving your
Mhm.
body in a sense, and biohack movement and lifestyle that way before we get too far into some of these other things.
Yeah, it's I'll share with the audience what I've been doing. So in 2015, I started a standing desk. So I went to a conference. I was in the coffee business at that point in time. I find that helped because I was in my 30s then, waking up with my back feeling busted. I was like,
Yeah.
why am I 35 years old and my back is like annihilated? Like that should
Yeah.
not be the case. It was the issue silently, sitting is the new smoking. And I
Sure.
think just having me stand made a difference. And
Yep.
you
I'm
burn.
standing right now.
I'm standing right now, and I think I don't know what the number is. Doesn't matter, but you burn more. I heard 50
Yes.
calories a day, but the point is my leg muscles are tense to hold me up versus if they're
Yep.
sitting, they're just sort of dangling
Yep.
there, right? So
Yep.
there's, well, what's it called?
You're
Atrophy.
moving, you're fidgeting,
I'm
you're
moving.
increasing blood circulation, you're not having any type of edema or pulling in your lower limbs just from just sitting and not moving for hours on end. You're more mentally alert because there is blood flow and there is movement in the body. I think it just keeps you more even just mentally awake throughout the day too, and think
Yeah,
better.
so I think you think better. So I found standing desk helped.
Yeah.
About a year ago, I bought just a little remote control for my walking pad. So I have a walking pad under here.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't do it during the meeting because then I start bobbing and it can maybe
Yeah.
make somebody nauseous. But if I'm typing an email or listening to a podcast or listening into a meeting, like I'll do that. And then in 2016, I got a dog, right? Because they got to walk 2, 3 times a day. And I said, well, at the very least, somebody else is going to come bug me. So my dog Dexter will say, hey, don't forget about me. So it actually forces me. And then the other thing I do is I have about a liter of water, 16 ounces of water
Yep.
beside me, and I'm just drinking all day.
Yep. Here's
So
my
there you go.
water.
There you
40
go.
ounces.
Or yeah, get your big jug, and I'm just drinking. And
Yep.
I don't, like most executives and entrepreneurs, I get into tunnel vision. I get into something,
Oh yeah.
and hours
So
can pass
focused.
by. So focused. But I've got into the habit now. It took me years, but I'm drinking water all day. Well,
Yep.
when that happened, guess what? My body's saying, hey, you kind of got to go to the bathroom. So like it forces me to take a 2 minute break because I found no matter what I can tell myself, people say the Pomodoro clock, you put it for 50 minutes and
Right.
you move, but then guess what? I just snooze it. I go, I'm going to finish this email. I'm going to finish this
Yeah.
deck. And so when my
Snooze the
body's
alarm to move.
snooze the alarm to move. But if you take physiological tips that I've done, that it just forces me to go. And then I just get to a point where I can't ignore it, right? So especially when you're drinking half a liter,
Yeah.
many ounces, 8 ounces every 20, 30 minutes, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you just kind of keep going, right? And I'll put supplements in it, vitamin C stuff, and I'll rotate the flavor and just
Yep.
to kind of keep it
Make it
fresh
fun
and
and
just
tasty.
make it fun. Yeah, just little tips like that. What
Yep.
other tips do you advise your clients to do or things that you've seen that seem to stick with people?
Things that say, well, of course, just what we said is the standing desk, a walking pad of sorts, having water around are simple things. A really basic strategy is pack your lunch. Why?
Yeah,
Because you're
practical.
in control. You've already made a decision of what it's going to be, and it can be literally as simple as a sandwich with some modest bread. It doesn't have to be the wholest whole grain or something, but it probably shouldn't be white. Like 70, 80 calories a slice. We have about 4 or 5 ounces of a protein source on the deli meat or so. A piece of fruit, a piece of vegetable, and that could be a really modest lunch that takes you a minute or two to pack and a 2 to 3 minutes to eat. And you can even, if I had a job that I left my house with, I'd probably go buy a 1990s tin with my favorite cartoon character on, and I would just carry it with me
Yeah,
every day. And that's how I would have my lunch. And then it's one less decision that I have to make about what I'm eating. And it's going to keep my energy moving forward with having enough food at that time that I need to eat. And I'm not just going to be susceptible to whatever is in the break room or anything like that. And that'll just keep my energy up. Something as simple
yeah.
as that. So, and then also well planned, timed out caffeine. Caffeine is a performance, it's a
Mm,
stimulant, it's an enhancer that we can use. And if we have something a little bit, not a lot, but maybe 100 milligrams in that 8, 9, 10-ish range, and maybe have it around that 12 to 2-ish range, then you can have sustained energy. And that half-life of caffeine is about 6 hours. If you have it at noon to 2, it's going to be done out of your system by 8 when you should be naturally shutting down anyways and starting to
yeah,
process of working your way to bed. We don't want to push it to 3 or 4 because then you start to stay up too late. And that would be just a really simple hack to keep energy up and keep that fluid motion and energy without having too many dips in there. But again, if you had enough water, you had a little bit of caffeine at those 2 times, and you had a good healthy lunch, your 3 p.m. woes of wanting to take a nap are vanished. It's just how it
yes.
works.
Yeah, we're working with what we got, right? And I
Yep.
think the key takeaway that I think the audience takes here is that you need help. If it's, the pressures of business and environment,
Yep.
we all need some sort of outside support to pat interrupt. And like you said, it's about focusing on the basics. It's not
Basics
some,
first.
some 17, $20,000 contraption that does God knows what kind of stuff. Like that stuff for the movies. Before we
Yes.
wrap up the podcast, can you talk a little bit about your health wealth flywheel and that overall concept? And we can probably finish on that topic.
Yeah, definitely. Your health is your wealth, right? If you have spent decades building a business and creating that financial security outcome, the 401k or the investments or the house and the retirement, well, if you didn't take care of your health, it might not be there. You might have to sell it all to pay for someone to wipe your butt in an assisted
Yeah,
living house because you're just that poor of health, right? You have many problems, and when you have a health problem, you only have one. And it's something, again, we have been taught to save. We've been taught to delayed gratification. We've been taught to invest for our long-term future, but it's not, life isn't a destination. You don't know when that last final stop is going to be. we have to live in the now, and we have to find that balance of juggling the chaos of where life is and doing the best you can. If you can master the basics, then you can have a significant amount more outcome and control over
Mhm.
where your life is going to end up. I hope at 42, by doing those basic things that I told you every day, or as most days between now and I'm 50, I hope to look and feel the way I do now when I'm 50. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be great. People would be confused. So, how old are you? How
Yeah.
old do you think I am? and
Those are the
and
best questions to get, right?
exactly, right? So life is a journey. We have to take care of ourselves now, regardless of just another part of the system that you're building around your business. You need to make sure that you build yourself into that equation and not just sacrifice. I have another lady. She's on a team of architects that just acquired, well, $1 billion plus architecture thing. The project, it's gonna take 5 years to do. And I just had a
Wow.
reminder that, hey, it's not getting built in the first month. You should be leaving the office at 6 p.m. There's no reason that you can't just get as much work as you can done and then shift it. And we also decided, because of the schedule, we talked about that, every weekend she's going to plan activities that are away from home, that are out and about with other people, so that she goes, does something, and not just ends up in
Yeah.
work mode on the weekend because she's just got all these emails and all this stuff. No, you can get to that at the next point of contact in your work schedule. And again, it's a multi-year project. It's going to take a long time to get this handled. We don't have to just do it straight away and sacrifice, because it'd be very
Uh,
easy for her to go full blow into work mode, and then 3 months go by and she hasn't come up for air yet, and she's way worse off with her health.
yeah, and I think that's, the key message of this conversation is to make sure get support, build a system.
Yeah.
It is about basics, and even though it's about basic and simple, doesn't mean that it's easy. We have a whole
Yes,
world that is
it's
trying to
yeah,
steal us, right? Simple is not easy.
yeah, yeah.
So don't dismiss the, oh, that sounds so simple. Like they're so
Yeah,
simple and
yeah.
easy, everyone would do it. And yet we have an epidemic of these issues, right? Which we
Yes.
have to
I,
fix.
I want my clients, when they're done working with me, I literally get this all the time. Wow, David, what'd you do? You look great. I moved more. I paid attention to my food choices, and I practiced portion control. Wouldn't that be a great way to respond to someone and they stare back at you saying, you're taking the shot, or you stopped eating carbs, or you're just not eating at all, right? You're training
Yeah,
for a marathon. You have to be, because that's how you lose weight or maintain weight in quotations this day and age. All right. That's not what I
true.
want. I want that first experience to be people are paying attention and making better choices.
I think then closing too, when you have someone like yourself in the corner,
Yeah.
it's everyone's journey is different. And so when
Sure.
someone like yourself, what works with another client may not work with someone else, but you'll
Right.
pick up on their pattern and you will help us, entrepreneurs and executives sort of calibrate.
Sure.
Okay. And that's what I think the point of biohacking is not all this other crazy contraption, but it's a quote unquote, not so much biohack, but to sort of bio understand what works
Right.
for me. Because we're all genetically wired different. We all have different DNA, like you said
Yeah.
earlier. Our stories are unique, our genetics are unique.
Right.
And it's just uncovering, okay, what are my patterns? Hey, David, Davide, or Jim or John or Sally, whoever we might be talking to.
Right.
When you do ABC, this is the things I notice. You have more energy in your eyes. Then you can start probing.
People
That's
see
what
it.
you
They
people
know it.
start seeing it,
They
and
see
someone
it.
like yourself will help them document it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing is, hey, simple is not easy. You need support. The answers are
Yeah.
out
You
there.
need to figure out what
And
simple is, and as
yeah,
easy as possible. Yeah, also think about this. If your business was operating and you realized that you needed something, another person or piece or part in that system, people are going to spend, say another employee, mid 5 to 6 figure range to get a qualified person in there to operate the system of the business in that area, whether it's billing or marketing or
Yeah.
fulfillment or anything like that. And they wouldn't think twice about it, but then they would, oh, I can't get a health coach or someone to help me with my personal health. They just don't even think about that. And I think that's a huge misstep for a lot of people to not get a qualified individual to help guide them, whether it be me or someone else. But the best businesses bring qualified people onto their team to get the objective accomplished in a timely manner with as least friction as possible. And that's what you can have when you bring someone on your health journey with you, to simplify it, to make it easier, because you don't need 18 different biohacks and this many supplements every morning. You haven't gone all day. You've gone a couple of days this week with not even eating food until 2 or 3 o'clock. No wonder you're a little hangry, tired, less productive, because you got
Yeah.
wrapped up in the morning hoopla of what work had for you.
Yeah, and I think this topic is gonna, I think it's gonna be even more important, particularly with AI and
Oh,
particularly with
totally.
all the pressure, only because the human system cannot adapt like the AI system. And if we
Right.
let it, it will just crush us into working
Right.
24
Even in
hours
the
a day,
last
like hit the
year, you can see how AI is adapted, right? It used to be, ChatGPT was full of emojis. You're like, oh my gosh, chat, why are
yeah.
you just hammering us with all these emojis? Now there's still telltale points of AI and things. You can see it in the copy, or you can see it in images and stuff, but it's going to
Hmm.
evolve. Another year of it, it's going to evolve quite a bit, and it is evolving pretty significantly. So
Hmm.
we we're not a machine. Ultimately, is I think the big takeaway, and we have to plan for our activity, our times of the day where we're really focused, and we have times of the day where we are recovering properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Great way to end. Really appreciate your
Yeah.
time today, Brian. Great conversation. I think we
Yes,
covered a
definitely.
lot of the basics, and I will get all your items in the show notes, and so
Wonderful.
people can connect with you. And really appreciate you and your time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've run the Call to Rise as a men's 100-day challenge to help guys focus on themselves, their health, and then being able to be productive in their other areas of life, whether it's with their family and their career, being more productive there. So an experience, because the AI is everywhere. You can chat GBT a meal plan, an exercise routine, or whatever, but it's not going to help you with those shoelace moments. And that's what this
Mm.
experience is about. And then I'll share in the show notes a 3-day Kickstarter, fat loss Kickstarter protocol. This is the Rise 72 that you can grab now. It has step by step. It's very simple to follow. Again, working basics around nutrition, around fitness, around some other mindset things, because it's there. And I think those are huge takeaways
Hmm.
of the way that our conversation was. Is it's the way that people think that gets them to change their behaviors and their habits, routines, and identity ultimately. So that's the Rise 72.
Yeah. This There's a saying, I don't know, again, I have all these things in my head. I don't know where they come from, but
Yeah, yeah.
your energy flows where your thoughts go. And so, to
Yes.
your point, the importance of mindset and programming and getting other people to see, they'll
Yep.
see how the energy shows up. We'll get to the root and start getting things down to a functional level so we can really get true wealth is health at the end of the day, because everything
100%.
else, the best things in life are often free. And yeah, we'll wrap on that note, and I'll put all
Perfect.
those elements in the show note. Really appreciate you and your time today, Brian,
Thank you
and
so much for
enjoy
having
the
me.
rest of
Appreciate
your
it.
week. Take care. Have a great day.
Yep. Thank you.